Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Riley McManus. A police standoff on Blucher Avenue last night has led to the arrest of a suspect connected to last month's homicide on McMillan Street. 32-year-old Justin Randy Coaster of Thunder Bay is facing charges of second-degree murder. Jonathan Wilson reports.
Back on July 29th, police responded to a weapons call on McMillan Street and found 37-year-old Charlie Joseph Finlayson from Thunder Bay dead at the scene. City police began treating it as a homicide and are now confirming that a firearm was used in the incident. Then, 13 days later, officers responded to reports of a disturbance on Blucher Avenue at Windsor Street, which led to a standoff involving several armed officers in body armor focusing on a residential building on the south side of the street. The standoff concluded at 8:45 p.m. and led to the arrest of 32-year-old Justin Randy Coaster of Thunder Bay. He's now been charged with second-degree murder in connection with Finlayson's death. City police cannot comment on the arrest because the province's Special Investigations Unit has invoked their mandate in the case. The SIU says that's due to police discharging a device believed to be a tear gas canister, which apparently struck Coaster but did not cause any serious injuries. Coaster was scheduled to appear in bail court earlier today. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Meanwhile, a verdict has been delivered in a 2018 Thunder Bay homicide case. 26-year-old Jonathan Yellowhead has been found guilty of manslaughter in connection with the death of a 17-year-old boy. Yellowhead pleaded not guilty during a 7-day trial held in April, where 14 witnesses were called to testify. The teenage victim, Braden Jacob, was from the Webequie First Nation. He was in the city for an appointment in December of 2018 when he went missing, and was later found dead at Chapels Park. Justice Bonnie Workington delivered her verdict today, saying the evidence showed Yellowhead assaulted Jacob, and the resulting blunt force injuries were a contributing factor in his death. The matter will return to court on September 28th to set a date for sentencing submissions. The full story can be found on tvnewswatch.com. The driver of a motorcycle involved in a serious crash in the intercity area on Tuesday afternoon has succumbed to his injuries. Family and friends have identified the victim as 64-year-old Ron DeLeo from Thunder Bay. He was riding his motorcycle at the corner of Vicker Street and Northern Avenue when his motorcycle collided with a car. The two people in the car were also taken to hospital, though the extent of their injuries was unknown. City police shut down the intersection and held the scene until Wednesday afternoon as they investigated the crash. The City of Thunder Bay has taken a big step towards lifting the James Whalen tug. A contract worth $793,000 has been awarded to LH North, with work set to begin in mid-September. The century-old tourist attraction sank to the bottom of the Cam River at the beginning of May. Currently, the plan includes the use of large cranes to lift the tug out of the water. It will then be placed at a temporary storage location on land. The city is still working to find a permanent home for the Whalen, with no timeline for that decision. City Manager Norm Gale recognized the criticism some in the community have had about the city's handling of the situation, but says they always had the vessel's best interest in mind.
All along, we have been thoughtful, deliberate, and careful in this process. We wanted to ensure that the tug was protected from further damage and that any move to raise it and store it and conduct further examination of the vessel was done carefully.
The city received 2 submissions for the work to raise the James Whalen. The work is expected to be completed by the first week of October. The legendary Canadian rock band Trooper drew a huge crowd to the Canadian Lakehead exhibition last night, and the amusement rides were packed as well for the fair's second night. It seems a lot of people have been eager for the CLE to return after a 2-year hiatus, but it's causing considerably long wait times to get in. Mitchell Ringos has the details.
And even though Trooper never hit it big worldwide, much like the Tragically Hip who came afterwards, they were beloved in their home country and here in Thunder Bay, with people flooding the CLE's concert area to hear some of their greatest hits like Raise a Little Hell and the crowd favorite We're Here for a Good Time, Not a Long Time, which they played twice. CLE Fair Chair Basil Lishwit expected a good-sized crowd but was shocked by the turnout.
Judging by our advanced ticket sales, it was a hunch that something big is going to happen here at the CLE. So, I was on pins and needles with the crowd that we had last night.
And while the live music made it a night to remember, the long wait times were not so exciting as a lineup started at the gate and went all the way across the May Street Bridge and even wrapped around onto Isabel Street. Some people said they waited close to an hour to get in, and Lishwood says it did cause some people to miss out on some of their time on the rides, which is why they kept them running past midnight.
We went to talk to Jim and Bob Mills, they own the rides. We stayed past 12:30, to try to help the people that didn't get the rides and everything. So kudos to them for, and working with us and, and the people that came. So, that's a good problem to have. And, yeah.
And the numbers we saw with Trooper are going to be hard to beat, but with Honeymoon Suite taking the stage, there's an expectation those lineups could be long once again tonight. So they are going to be opening up this gate behind me for advance tickets to try and thin out those lines. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
Ontario's education minister is calling it regrettable that CUPE, a union representing 55,000 education workers, is discussing plans to hold strike votes just weeks before students head back to school. Andrew Brennan has the details.
It's a war of words, the education minister calling this a needless escalation, the union accusing Stephen Lecce of the same.
He's very much jumping the gun. He very much jumped the gun last month when he claimed that, he was demanding that we would be at work September 6th.
Which the Union for Education Workers, such as early childhood educators, educational assistants, and custodians, says is not in doubt at this time. But the education minister says calling a meeting to talk about organizing strike votes has a clear goal.
If the intent is not to create pressure on the government and potentially a casualty of that is these kids, then why would they take this step?
The union's first offer to the government is for a nearly 12% pay increase,
which is the equivalent of the entire Ministry of Colleges and Universities budget. It is the entire budget of the province of Saskatchewan. This is a massive increase and a massive request.
But the union rep, who is also an educational assistant, says she wants Lecce to show his homework. And this amounts to a raise of $3.25 per hour.
For most workers, for myself, for instance, it would mean the difference of making $36,000 a year or making $40,000 a year. There is not a single worker who's going to get rich.
The government is presenting its offer to the union on Monday.
After the health minister said the province is looking at innovations in the healthcare system, Premier Doug Ford was asked this morning about privatization plans and whether Ontarians will have to pay for care.
There's one thing we'll guarantee. You'll always be covered by OHIP, not the credit card, but OHIP. And there's different systems out there that they've brought to my attention. And again, I'm sitting down and talking to the experts. They're going to come up with solutions. And we're continuing to move forward, building the infrastructure and hiring more nurses, more PSWs, 27,000 of them. But we're going to get it resolved.
The Premier said all options are on the table and any changes will be led by expert advice. Advocates argued the province needs to do more to recruit and retain healthcare staff, including repealing wage caps. Just in time for the weekend, gas prices jumped 8 cents a litre across Ontario. The overnight hike at the pump means, on average, gas will cost just under $1.75 a litre. Prices fell about 20 cents last week. Analysts say the up and down trend is due to frantic energy markets that are undecided on the value of fuel. City Council could give big approval at their next public meeting to allow for the construction of the first backyard home in Thunder Bay. Backyard homes in the city are now an option on certain lots after the passing of the new zoning bylaw in April. It opens up opportunities for homeowners who can rent the building out to make some extra money or have an older family member live in it. That's the appeal for Jody Graham, who's looking to get the first approval for the backyard home in the city. She says it makes for a perfect living situation for her and her mother.
Because she has her own living space and she can remain independent, but I can still be able to take care of her and see her and cook for her, as she likes to say.
By its very nature, a backyard home has a limited size that we're allowed to build them. So it stretches our design thinking into maximizing every square inch of the building to make it feel like a larger space.
Council will decide at their public meeting on August 22nd whether to give the okay for the backyard home. The slate of candidates for the Thunder Bay City Council continues to grow. West Fork councillor Kristen Oliver filed her nomination papers today. She's facing 3 challengers in her re-election bid. And veteran councillor Trevor Gertuga has confirmed that he'll be running again in the at-large race. He's also running at-large will be Shane Judge. He ran unsuccessfully for the mayor the past 2 elections. Andy Wolf is taking on Andrew Folds in the current River Ward, and Corey Bagden is now the 4th candidate running in the McKellar Ward. The nominations close next Friday at 2 p.m. Nipigon will be getting a new mayor this October. After 16 years in the top job, Richard Harvey is stepping aside to make way for another candidate, but he isn't stepping very far away. Rather than running for mayor again, Harvey will be seeking a councillor seat in Nipigon instead. He says he's feeling a lot of mixed emotions. It's something he's been wanting to do for a while, and he's looking forward to moving into a supporting role on council. Longtime Nipigon councillor James Fold has just announced he's seeking the mayor's chair, and Harvey says Folds has his full endorsement.
My main concern is the township of Nipigon, is the well-being of the people. And I am more than happy if somebody who I believe is going to be a strong candidate, if somebody who is going to be, who would do an excellent job as mayor came forward, I would be happy to step aside and move more into the background.
Folds is one of the 2 people running to replace Harvey as mayor. The other is Susan Kuko. She's the former economic development officer for Nipigon and currently works for the Superior Country Tourism. Well, Fiona, it was another